Why do you lose all reason and suck Destiny's balls? That makes no sense to me. You don't do this with anybody else, and I need you to explain it.
Okay, I would need an example because I don't think I do that. I think that, like, even yesterday, the fact that I'm going in and having a very strong disagreement with him with things that are going to
That's content,
get his
though.
audience to
That's
come.
content.
Well, wait, but it's content in a way that makes it to where he, the entire time, is calling me an idiot, calling me a retard. So is Pisco. They're all saying that I'm brainwashed and that I'm this like crazy right winger, right? Sure, I get content, but if I'm doing it for money and I'm doing it to appease his audience and appease him, this is a really poor way of going about it. Because yeah, even with the way that he like his initial couple tweets about the Trump thing, yes, I was very critical of him and I had a ton of disagreements with him on those things. And while yes, everybody was flooding in one direction, I was probably, I don't know, probably just me, and Wick was a little too far in the soy direction where he was taking a weird position. But yeah, he gave some takes that were definitely implicitly going to encourage behavior.
See, I don't
like
get this
that I
though.
was
You're a
not.
good debater. You're a good debater, and you have a good handle on philosophy. Why do you deal with these ingrates? Erudite, Wick, those guys don't know shit about any of this. They don't know anything about debate. They don't know anything about philosophy. They're just fucking head talkers. They just make the triangle head, where they make a triangle sign, and they go, "Oh my God, I just everything. I'm incredulous about everything." Why do you even deal with these people, Tom? Why
These are
did you
just the
flip your
people
Republican
who are
stance
around.
too?
Because of Trump. The entire reason that I moved away from the Republican Party
Oh,
was
come on,
because of
dude.
Trump.
Over Biden? No way, Tom. No way.
Yeah. I mean, Trump
Are
is the
you
reason
sure
I
that
ended up questioning
that it
like
wasn't
my
just
entire moral system and everything was because of Trump.
are you sure it wasn't just that DGG was what was left for you
I
and
didn't
there
even
was a
know
pathway
DGG
there so
back.
you took it?
No. Yeah, no. When I started doing this stuff, I was doing podcasting and everything. And then I started going on Prime
Well,
Kai's panels. And then I started doing streaming like in the Twitch style because of Prime Kai's panels. And then eventually met Destiny and all of them. But I was already like, yeah, in that camp, kind of like moving in
but
that direction
these people
before.
are dumb, dude. They're dumb. They're half retarded. Why do you
Everybody
even
who's
waste your
not me
time
is
with
half
them?
retarded. So it's hard to find anybody who's as smart as me. So.
It wouldn't bother me if you just debated with them, right? But you don't. You're part of this crew now.
I'm literally just in a space where I do open call-ins, and these are the people who call in. And yes, I like anybody who calls in and jumps on and hangs out and talks or comes onto the open panels or whatever. Like those are the people who do. Those are the people who come. So it's these are the
You
people
remember
who are
back when
interested
you
in
were
engaging with
arguing
everybody.
You remember back when you were arguing with Nazis on Politically Provoked? That was
Yes,
better content. That was better content
it's a lot
than
of
the
fun.
shit that you fucking have dealing with Wick TV and Not So Very Bright. Like, that was better content. Having Neil on and arguing with him and Brittany was better content than this garbage. I don't know why. Why are you so invested in these fucking people, dude?
I know you're making it to where I'm so invested. I don't know where this is.
You made a fucking
Come on.
documentary about the guy, Tom.
I'm gonna make a
What do
documentary
you
about
mean?
Richard Spencer too. It doesn't mean I invested in the alt-right or Richard Spencer either.
Yeah,
I
well,
want to make
let me
stuff
ask you a
about
question.
online
Have you
videos.
made a single, then tell me the truth, Tom. Have you made a single shred of footage about Richard Spencer? A single shred?
I haven't made anything on Destiny either. I haven't put
Yeah,
out anything
nothing.
on his documentary either.
You're full of
I haven't
shit.
made
You've made tons of, yeah. How much footage do you have of Destiny and what you're doing? How many man hours have you sunk into this?
a lot.
1,000?
Yeah, probably.
Has it been 1,000 man hours, Tom?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, probably. How many man hours have you sunk into your Spencer documentary, Tom?
I haven't gotten to it yet. I want to finish this one first.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so zero. So the answer is zero.
Yeah, I guess the amount of time that it took me to talk to Richard Spencer and a bunch of the people around him and tell him that eventually I want to do this documentary and I want to interview all of them, that's the amount of time that I've sunk into it.
You become a kiss ass. You become a suck ass kiss ass, dude.
I am
Stop
not
it.
a suck ass
You're
or a kiss
better.
ass. I'm not
You
doing any of these things.
are.
And if you have an
You
example of
become a
something
suck
somewhere where
ass.
I'm doing that, I'm happy to hear it. But I don't have any examples of where it is that I'm
Okay,
doing
here's my
this.
example. Here's my example, Tom. Right? Other than the fact that you made an entire documentary about this fucking guy. The fact
Not
of
a
the
good
matter
example.
is, you're what's called a heel. Do you know what a heel is?
Yes.
Yeah,
It's somebody
that's
that
what
you
you
can
are
easily
to
lean on.
what you are to DGG. You are a heel. Your job is to go in and give what they consider to be a weak counter opinion so that they can tear it to shreds. You're the only dissenting voice which is there, and it's a moderate voice. And so what they do is they use you and they put you up on a
Tom's an
pedestal and they
alt-right
rip you to
progressive.
fucking shreds
FRFR
in
no
order to
cap.
make themselves look good. And you let them do it to you, Tom. Why do you do that?
Again, Destiny and Pisco and all of them were able to admit that they got my argument wrong and that they agreed with me. So I don't know where that's coming from because in the end, yes, if they agree with me, it doesn't sound like
After
that's
your
what they're
15
doing.
concessions that you never would have made with anybody else.
I didn't make
After
any
your
concessions. I
multiple
don't know where you're getting this from.
concessions,
I didn't make any concessions. I didn't make any
you did.
concessions. This,
You did.
no,
You
I
said, I
didn't.
can see it from your angle. I see it from your, I
Oh,
understand from your angle,
brother.
guys. I can see it from your perspective, guys.
Wait, I'm saying the same
Come
thing to
on.
you though. So that's not any evidence of me like
Because you fucking
leaning
agree
or
with
being a
me.
heel or
You
anything.
should you should see it from my angle because my angle's the one you agree with.
Oh my
But
god.
if you didn't agree with it, Tom, if you didn't agree with it, you wouldn't concede shit.
I'm telling you that I use the same definition as him, and I actually agree with his position for the most part. That I had some differences in the answers that he made or
You
the
lie.
arguments that
This
he
is
made.
such gutless bullshit. You agree semantically that his definition is correct. That doesn't mean that you agree that the argument is correct. And you have made this crystal clear multiple times. So stop with that's all cope, bro. When you deal with these people, it's 5-on-1. You're the heel. And you don't have to be the heel.
That's going
You
to be the
don't
case
you,
no matter where because of the size of my audience. That's always going to be the case because I just
bro.
continuously every time I get up to like 300 concurrent viewers on average, I do something to cancel myself and drop back down to like 50 again. So
Oh, why? Because
does
you're dealing with these Tom Tent guys
yes, but
who are
yes, because
worried,
there's a bunch of fucking soy
because
lefties
they're
who are
worried.
running around me
Yeah,
tooing
because
me and whining
I
about
get it.
dumb
I get
bullshit.
it,
Yes.
bro. Listen, but that's on you too. Why the fuck are you worrying about a bunch of dude? These guys are all fucking honestly, Tom. They're all nobodies too. They're all
Well, for the
nobodies
same
too.
reason as before, it's
And
content. It's
you
content.
give a bunch of credibility to a bunch of nobodies who are worried about whether or not you've lied about your Pizza Hut career. Who gives a fuck, dude? Who gives a fuck? Why are you wasting your time with any of this? You actually have some kind of good grounding for understanding philosophical debate. And you're worried about a bunch of fucking losers talking about Tom Tent and some chick named Sassafras. Who gives a fuck about these people, bro? What are you doing?
It's content. It's fun.
Yeah, it's content. Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. It's fucking content. But anyway, I'll leave it there. And you have a good night, man. I hope I was able to answer your questions. And you're always welcome on the Crucible. And,
I mean,
thank
you
you
didn't
for having me
answer
on your
what an
channel.
insurrection is, but I appreciate it, man. Have a good night.
But Tom, did I need to? No. You ended up agreeing
Yes.
with me anyway.
All right.
All right.
Thanks, man.
Have a good night,
Have a
man.
good night. Later. Everywhere I go, Destiny's fucking audience is all telling me that I'm an Andrew simp and that I'm like this fucking crazy right winger, or Destiny's gonna tell me I'm a fucking red pillar or whatever, or but then these people come in and I'm this fucking Destiny simp and all this shit. Wait, did he actually make an argument? He didn't want to give a definition. He said he has to save it for something else. It doesn't even matter if he gives a definition. Like what happened on January 6th. He wants Christianity to come back, but it's not going to. Tomfoolery show, these red pillars don't have it. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that he said was, like, even if Trump was involved, like, I don't give a shit. Like, so what? And so, even like, yes, the important parts that I think before the debate, Pisco was telling Destiny, don't argue on the fact that, like, Trump was involved, because then Andrew's gonna like solely focus on you involving Trump. And that's all he's gonna argue on, where you don't need to argue that. You just need to argue that it was an insurrection. Hey.
Oh, okay. We're safe from peace going here.
Oh boy. Yeah.
Oh, some people said that I'm dodging. It's typically thought of as pretty rude to barge in when somebody else is chatting. If
Dudes
Andrew
just
wants
don't
to
hit the
join, he's
same
welcome
Mando.
to.
I
But
need
that's
that
I'm not going to
Tomassi.
demand to enter when somebody else is chatting. That's really rude. Okay, what's that? What have you been chatting about tonight, Tom?
We were talking about the debate, and I asked him if he had a definition, like maybe 4 or 5 times, and each time he said he's not giving one because he's saving it for another debate, and that in this one he didn't even know what your definition of insurrection was, and he didn't know whether or not he would agree with it beforehand, so he had to go in with a negative position or a neutral position.
Okay. And so I provided what
Dream.
I felt was a definition of insurrection that I thought was historically and judicially grounded. And then I feel like he didn't fight well against that definition. It
Someone
seemed like he
catching a
was
mean ass
using
string.
kind of like fallacious
bad, kind of.
argumentation to try to say that it wasn't adequate because a riot could describe every insurrection. It's kind of what it felt like. But I feel like, I mean, every insurrection is also a riot. So I don't really know
Yeah,
what
it's
I'm,
the other
yeah.
way around. Yeah. Every riot is an insurrection, but not every insurrection is a riot. And I gave some examples of how it would have to differentiate based on like the government. And one of the things he
Mhm.
brought up is like, okay, so what about a bunch of people like blocking a state highway for a protest? Is this now some sort of impediment on government processes? And I said, I don't know.
What
Like, I
are
guess
you
if it's
wearing,
like
Destiny?
stopping like
Your
trucks,
PJs?
like fire trucks
Please
and
tell
police
chat.
cars,
Daddy
but
chill.
even that, I don't think that that's like an official government process. And I think it would have to impede some sort of like elected official from doing something, not just like a
Sure.
police officer
Do you
or a fire
understand,
truck.
I guess just for you to know, you understand that like courts have already engaged in this exact question, and courts and Congress have already like found that January 6th was an insurrection using this definition, right? Like when the Colorado Supreme Court struck Trump off their ballot, they engaged in this exact analysis to determine that January 6th was an insurrection, and that's what the Colorado Supreme Court found.
Yes, but what he's saying is if a bunch of people covering the state highway is an insurrection, then okay, cool, you found that it's an insurrection, but it doesn't mean anything if this is an insurrection too. It just doesn't have a whole lot of weight with the word.
That's fine, and then he can argue with the overly broadness of it, but we're completely away. In that case, the debate should have been insurrections aren't big deals, right?
Well, I mean, he
It
said
shouldn't
that he
have been arguing
conceded
over
that
whether or
your
not January 6th.
definition fit and that it, like, according to that, it's an insurrection. It's just that it doesn't mean anything because your definition was overly broad. I don't
Well, it
remember
would
him
mean
conceding that,
something.
but
Even,
that's
even if
what he
I were to
said.
go, even if I were to do the most charitable reading of his argument, it would just mean that an insurrection, I guess, is a riot that involves some kind of government thing at all, right? So you could argue that my definition is overly broad, but it's still not responding to the prompt of was January 6th an insurrection, right?
So his question is, why would it matter if it's an insurrection instead of just arguing the points of what it is that happened there? And I said that the word insurrection is obviously coming with a negative connotation. So if we actually went and we started an insurrection and that turned into a revolution, which turned into us overthrowing the government, on
Destiny,
the
you
other
don't
side of
realize,
things,
but you are
after we
doing
win and
CPR
after
for
we take
Tom.
over, we wouldn't look back at that as Insurrection Day. We would look at that as like Independence Day or Freedom Day or something like that, Revolution Day. But it wouldn't be Insurrection Day because that has like this negative connotation to it, which is why it's used as like a
Tom,
crime
if you
and
admit that super
like
chats are
something that we
basically the
title
same
as,
thing
yeah,
as January
something that
6th,
people
I'll
should go to
concede
jail
the
for
debate.
or be charged with.
Okay, sure. But I mean, also, like, the severity doesn't matter that much, right? Like, there are probably some insurrections that aren't that big of a deal. There are probably some insurrections that are a really big deal. We could say the exact same thing with riot, right? We can probably imagine some riots that are really not a big deal, and we could probably imagine some riots that are horrible, right? Like the Rodney King riots were insane, but I'm sure there have been like riots on college campuses where, you know, like a couple windows were broken. It's not a big deal, right? Like there are probably going to be some riots that are worse than some insurrections. That, I mean, like that doesn't like speak to the strength or weakness of any of the definitions, right?
Yeah. But I think that's his point is that he doesn't know what at what point is it at at a level where he should actually care or where it's serious enough, and he wanted to argue something that was actually substantial as to whether or not it's serious. And so because he said
Yeah, but then
he conceded that your definition fit, but
Yeah.
that it just didn't mean anything.
I understand that, but then if he really wanted to have a good faith discussion there, then we would have to discuss the severity of the insurrection, right? So, for instance, he could have the argument, okay, fine, Destiny, I'm going to grant you your definition of insurrection. And then we're going to go and see, was January 6th an insurrection? And he might even grant me the W on the argument, but he would say, he could go on to say, like, sure, fine, it was insurrection, but it had no chance of succeeding. There were only one person, like, really died or got killed by anybody there. A lot of it was just, like, people wandering through Congress or Capitol, the state, or not the state Capitol, the Capitol building without any, like, big consequences, right? He could go on to make that argument if he wants. But like we would have to advance the conversation to get there. Just because it wasn't a big deal doesn't make it not an insurrection, right? Just like if I hit somebody and I don't really like injure them, that doesn't mean it wasn't assault, right? Like
Right.
you can't argue against the thing because it wasn't a very severe version of the thing. And it's funny because when he accuses me of wanting to bring in a bunch of normative baggage with the word insurrection, it feels like he's fighting against something descriptively because he's afraid of the normative baggage. Like, rather than accusing me of normatively loading it too much, he's normatively loading it too much by trying to fight against the description because of the ethics of it, right? Well, it can't be an insurrection because it wasn't that bad. And it's like, we can imagine like a lot of bad criminal charges for things that probably weren't that bad, right?
Yeah. Did he schedule the debate though? Was it him that reached out to you for it?
Yep. I challenged people on Twitter if any conservatives wanted to debate. I was hoping to get way more to the substance of January 6th and whether or not it was an insurrection, and then he responded to that challenge.
Okay. Because I was thinking it's I guess I was gonna say it's weird that he would like set up the debate and then say, yeah, but I don't actually care if it's an insurrection when he set it up, but it is kind of in a weird area where yes, you put it out there and said somebody debate me on this, and so he was willing to debate you on it, just not on the parts that you actually wanted to debate on. So
sure, but I'll be a little more aggressive. I'll say I don't think that's weird. I think it's intentional because conservatives typically know that it's like indefensible. You're like, there's no way to defend this particular event. I don't think, other than to like endlessly obfuscate.
well, yeah, there's that, or there's because this is the issue that I run into is every time I want to debate it. I spent a very long time debating groypers, and so most of the right wingers in my audience are groypers. And if they come on, they're like, "Yeah, it was an insurrection. It was dope, wasn't it? That was awesome, right?" I'm like, "Well, shit, this isn't this isn't helpful. So never mind."
Yeah.
Okay. Did you have any other questions about that? Because I wanted to ask you something.
Go for it.
So yesterday, I guess I didn't clarify this, and I've got a million people telling me that I'm wrong. We did agree at the end, yes. Like we agreed that like I was meaning to ask about your definition that you came in with, and that you can apply that definition to other things because it's not strictly a federal law definition, and so therefore you could engage with hypotheticals that have to do with states, right?
Yeah, probably. I think
Okay.
so. Yeah.
Okay, because I think Pisco explicitly stated that, and then after you were like, yeah, you couched it in the debate of Andrew, and so it just made me think that you were arguing something else, and so yeah, I wasn't sure. So then afterwards, when I said, I was like, yeah, we all agreed in the end, so it's fine. They were all like, no, you didn't agree. Destiny still disagreed. You were arguing Andrew's point. I was like, I don't think that any of them thought that though. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's just because it came up in the context of the other debate.
Yeah,
So
well,
that's what
that's
it's going to feel like it's a reference to, right?
I guess I've done that the last couple of times because one of the other times we had a debate, it was in the context of you debating Torsia, and so then I came in to disagree there with a specific thing you said there, and then the entire time I was a red pillar, and I was a fan of Fresh and Fit, and all of these other guys that same thing. Yeah, I'm just not a right winger, not a fan of any of those people, not anywhere close, but I keep getting like couched in these areas because I'm using other debates where you make a statement and I just disagree with the statement and want to talk to you about that I end up like looking like I'm somebody else. So
Oh,
fair enough.
yeah. I mean, the context, yeah. I mean, just the context that the statement comes up in is going to be like, is always going to be, I think, accounted for, right? Like imagine there's a guy that gets caught, with like 100 terabytes of child porn on his computer, and I'm like arguing with another guy, and I'm like, you can't just have naked kids on your computer like that. Like, of course, this is not good. And then you come in and you're like, well, is it always like wrong to have naked pictures of kids? Like, what if in like a family album, there were a bunch of kids like at the creek, and there were like some 5-year-olds and the kids were running around naked, and had a picture of that in a family album. Is that child porn? Like, the technical answer would be no, but bringing that up in the context of referencing a debate where we're talking about a guy who is explicitly and specifically collecting child porn, just it taints that whole question,
It does, but but I see it more like you run out and say Epstein didn't actually kill himself, and then everybody runs around saying you're defending Epstein. Like, that's more so how I see it. Is that, yeah, you're kind of like stating something that's fairly factual and fairly normal. Like, yeah, there's just no evidence for this. Like, this is a normal argument. He didn't kill himself. And then everybody's like, oh my goodness, I can't believe he's defending Epstein, and he's defending like Hillary killing him. And like, it's yeah, it's
No, sure, yeah. But I mean, it's always going to probably come off that way in the context of bringing it up in another debate.
Yeah. Yep, I understand.
Somebody said, ask Destiny, what about Andrew is bad faith? I would say that entire conversation was bad faith for the reasons that I just said. We had a 3-hour conversation about insurrection on the 6th, and there was absolutely nothing of substance discussed. I feel like he was looping really hard on at least 2 different arguments that he should have moved past, but he didn't respond to my response to him. I think the first loop was on the difference between resisting the execution of law versus just like breaking a law. It seemed like that was something he either wasn't able to understand, or he just didn't want to hear my argument on it because it would force us to move the conversation along. And then the second part was what was the second thing? There were 2 big things his mind got completely mind fucked on. I don't even remember the second thing, but I feel like I responded to the same thing over and over and over again, and I'm like, I don't know what the point is of this. And also, like, if you're debating in good faith, especially if something of substance to debate, I mean, at some point you just kind of like grant a thing and then move on, and you say, okay, fine, well, I'll grant you this, and then we'll move on from here. But if I have an issue, I'm going to come back to this, which is fine. But I think it was pretty obvious that he didn't want to grant that because there's no argument to make past that. I would also say that I think he thought he got me with some tweet where I was talking about Alex playing with the fire. Yeah.
Yeah,
so
he was talking about the syllogism argument here as well, and I was trying to explain that it was different, but different because you're saying this is the argument that I actually believe. I believe that this is I actually don't have a position on whether or not this happened, whereas we're saying that we believe Andrew does have a position on this, and he's just not arguing it.
Well, no, actually, that's not even. There's a much trickier game. There's a much trickier linguistic game being played by Andrew here. I don't know if he's doing this intentionally or not.
It was my issue then. Fair enough.
Do what?
I said, sorry, then that's my issue then. That's
no, that's fine. When Andrew states that he's neutral on the topic, if you don't have a definition, you're not neutral on it. Your position is undefined or it's unknowable. Like in that he's saying that his answer to the prompt would be unknowable, right? For you to have a neutral position on something usually implies that you've considered 2 sides of a thing and you've decided that the evidence is equal on both sides, or you understand the prompt but you haven't considered it, right? So you're neutral. Like generally that's what neutral implies. But if there's a term that you're not defining, you can't really say that you're neutral with respect to that because you just don't have a. You can't. That's why when I asked him that question of, do you think that January 6th was a, and then he kind of like laughed and didn't understand. The reason why is because he wouldn't say, well, I'm neutral on whether or not January 6th was a, because it doesn't make any sense. You can't compute you can't parse the question. It doesn't make any sense, right? The reason why it's not a good comparison with my argument with Alex is because Alex said, I believe that Israel is engaged in war crimes. And I said, I don't believe there's enough evidence for that. So my position is that there's not enough evidence that they've engaged in war crimes. If it was comparable to the debate that I had with Andrew, it would have been me arguing with Alex about the definition of war crimes for 3 hours. But it wasn't. It was we agreed on the definition of a war crime quite quickly, right, as internationally defined, and then we moved on to the substance of the conversation. For Andrew, it's not like we agreed on the definition of insurrection, and then he challenged me on the substantive evidence that I offered for insurrection and said, well, I don't think your evidence is good enough, therefore I'm undecided, or I have a neutral position. I don't think you've provided enough, so I don't think that there's any evidence for an insurrection. He challenged me on the definition itself. And those 2 things are wholly they're wholly incomparable. And again, you can just look at it because the substantive differences in the debate. Me and Alex weren't debating on the definition of war crime, and me and Andrew weren't he wasn't like rejecting the substance that I was bringing up about it being an insurrection. So it's not comparable.
Well,
at
and
all.
he's not even rejecting the definition as in it doesn't fit or it's the wrong definition. He's rejecting the definition to say, well, it's so broad that it doesn't actually matter.
Yeah, he did keep saying that, but only because he seemed unable to understand a couple of my points. But yeah,
Well,
and again, like
the
you
thing
can
is,
say that it's
it
like too
wouldn't
broad and it
matter
doesn't
anyways, though. Like
What?
to him, it doesn't matter if he cares or if he thinks it matters. It's the debate prompt. Like it's what you're there to debate. And so even if you come back and say, well, yeah, I don't actually care if it's an insurrection or it doesn't matter if it's an insurrection. Well, it doesn't really matter if you care or if you think it matters. Like that's the debate prompt. That's what you're here to debate. And you're not, and you're in, but he said that he conceded it. So
Yeah. Wait, he said that.
he said a couple of times that he was willing to concede that your definition would fit an insurrection or insurrection would fit what happened on January 6th. It's just whether or not it's actually like what his problem was whether or not it was too broad.
Sure.
So yeah, that was the main thing that he kept repeating is that he's like, yeah, okay. He's like, they keep saying that I'm bad faith, but I was willing to even concede the point. Like, I don't know how I can be bad faith if I'm literally like conceding the point and saying, okay, actually, you're right. But I have another issue that I want to talk about. And that was his main contention.
Okay. Any other questions or anything?
No, that's all I got. Appreciate you jumping on.
Yeah.
right.
Wait, let's see if I'm missing anything in your chat. Anything worth responding to?
Tom asked Destiny, is it bad faith for Andrew to call him a Coomer gremlin of the South? No, that's not bad faith. That's factually accurate.
Wish that Andrew had the stones to join VC. Bummer.
Nope. Maybe? No?
I don't see anything. I think I got somebody in the waiting room. Leader, did you have a question for Destiny?
I did want to say that I would not so much a question for Destiny, but I wanted to point out that I thought that when Andrew was coming in and he was saying that you were essentially a patsy for Destiny, or you're his fall guy. I feel as if like that's what he was doing to you. that was my big thing.
I mean, he wasn't doing that to me. He's explicitly saying that I'm the DGG heel. So
yeah, but I think he was doing that so he could set you up so that you were the essential like, oh look, even Destiny's orbiters disagree with Destiny on it. I feel as if that's what he was trying to like sort of put forth in what he was saying. But that's how he was trying to set things up.
maybe. I don't know.
Oh,
his main thing is he has an issue with everybody who like is like in this space, and so I'll agree. Like I definitely like changed the style of it, the way that I did everything to more fit a streamer, gamer, Twitch style of streaming, to where it wasn't this like podcaster, more professional setup anymore. But it was a more of like a laid back and Twitch generic style. And I think he sees this as like fitting into the DGG group, and then everybody who does these like open debate channels or like they allow people to just hop on and argue about everything, that they're all kind of under Destiny. And I think he would even apply that to Vosh, Demon Mama, Doe, like all the I don't know any of the people over there in that area, but I think he would apply the same thing to all those people just because they do the same style of debates. Though I did say this to you, Destiny, and I Myron, so did you know that it was going to be like set up with the 5-minute rounds and everything like that?
No, but I don't care that much. It's fine. I can do either one. Is fine with me. I didn't know that he was going to come in without a definition, though. If that was the case, I might not have accepted, or if I did accept, I might have approached it differently. I'm not sure.
Yeah, Andrew said that he
Um,
asked for a more open debate style, and that Myron said that he wanted to do it that way, which I know you, Desi, you said numerous times in the past that you were going to stop doing those debates, which is why I asked, is because, yeah, it's hard to watch them and analyze them in any substantive way because you're each, it it is like set up for gish gallops. Like it's not even fallacious to gish gallop anymore because you just have to gish gallop. You have to go over like 5 or 6 different points each and every single time you speak because you have to speak for 5 minutes and address every point that the other person's making, and you're going to make more points with that, which means that they're going to make more points with their response and then also make more points to argue. And it's just it ends up being so much bullshit the entire time.
Sure. I was trying to kind of like torture test some of my arguments to see if there were any good holes that any conservatives could point out before I start like taking these a little bit more mainstream because I'm starting to debate other people. I had a debate with Prager, I think yesterday
what you
about
debated him on?
stuff related to this. It came up a bit, yeah, but not that much. But yeah, I'll be doing this more once I finish these docs and start talking to more YouTubers. So it's all just part of the rigmarole.
Do you have a name? We were going over some of your names on stream the other day for different types of annoying ways that people debate. Do you have a name for people who loop over and over and just ask the same questions instead of giving rebuttals to what you've already answered?
No, not yet, but maybe we'll think of one.
Okay.
But okay. Well, I'll
All
let you
right.
be careful. Stay safe, buddy. Okay?
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye.
I should have caught him while he was in here. So what do you think about? Do you think that what is it that Destiny's definition of like an insurrection that that you can sort of that it can be like, because Andrew seems to think that you can dilute his definition down to the point where it's sort of like meaningless because it applies to too many things. Um, how do you buy into sort of that statement, Tom? What do you
Wait,
think
say
about
that
that?
again. I don't
So
understand the
like,
question.
so Andrew seems to think that Destiny's what I picked up from what he was saying was that he seems to think that Destiny's like definition of like an insurrection is like meaningless because ultimately, if you were to take him at like the best faith possible, that it would be meaningless because it can be applied to too many different situations, and therefore, it doesn't hold any water. Essentially, what do you
I mean,
have
I think
like a
that that's
position on?
possible. Obviously, we did a lot of like testing here. You were here, I think, when we went over a bunch of different types of definitions in the chat, and we pulled the chat and said,
Yeah.
"Hey, if we change this aspect of this scenario and add this in instead, would you still call it an insurrection?" And we kept getting like more or less votes on each one based on whether or not we had a specific aspect in there. And it seems as though for a lot of people, even though each scenario would fit every aspect of the definition, conceptually, they wouldn't want to call it an insurrection based on different things that we were adding in or taking out. And so, where Andrew's giving examples like, hippies or something like that, he's obviously messing with the concept of what it is we think of when we picture an insurrection. We think of like a militia and like a group of people who are armed and like militarized and ready to go, and they're going into like really battle and start a revolution, and they're gonna be shooting, and there's gonna be a lot of like, and so he's saying like that's like conceptually what we think of when we think of an insurrection. Yet a bunch of hippies like smoking pot, and they like throw one of their joints out and it starts a fire, and then they're all breaking into a building, and like it just doesn't like so that they can smoke weed in there, but then it like the smoking the weed makes the fire alarm go off, and now all of the politicians have to scatter and get out, and they're all happy because that they were getting ready to like make weed illegal, and now they're not making weed illegal anymore. Like it just it does mess with the way that we conceptualize this, even though it's fitting every single part of the definition. And yeah, it's just like it is true that what he was saying is people wouldn't want to call that an insurrection. That's what he said. He didn't say This isn't an insurrection. He said people wouldn't want to call that an insurrection. And the reason he's saying that is because, yes, he's like talking about a conceptual idea of an insurrection. If you hear something happened on the news, do you immediately think, oh, that's an insurrection? Or do you think, oh, those are just some hippies smoking weed? Or do you think, oh, those are just some crazy conspiracy theorist Trumpers breaking into the Capitol? What weirdos? Like, you know,
At
that's
Crucible Clips,
his
do
main
you think
point.
it's good faith to offer someone a
I
cross-examination
I would say that he doesn't really he doesn't really contend with the idea that that Trump still tried to like delay like the certification of the ballots, and like the big sort of like the heavy sort of like hitters in the sort of like the big things that Trump has done. You never sort of have to get into any of that if you just sort of like go around the back and sorry about this.
What the hell is
That was
that?
fun.
You're gonna get me
That's my phone
copyrighted.
calling at the absolute worst possible time. It's like he doesn't have to sort of get into like the sort of like what
Are they
Trump
not watching
did on
Tomfoolery?
January 6th. Apparently not. They just or maybe that's what they want. They sort of want to part of your show. They want to
Yeah, they're
call
probably
into a
calling you
show
because
for
they're
a
really
week.
excited that you're on my show right now.
That's it. I guess I would say that I don't think Andrew really had to contend with any of the hard questions about what essentially Trump did on January 6th and with Pence and the
So
certification.
your
of
original
He just
question was,
avoids
is
all of
that, do you think that's a justified question? And I think, yes, that is justified. That is a good way of challenging it. I don't think it's a good way of challenging it. I think that if you actually wanted to challenge the definition, there's much better ways to actually go about that and actually show what it is that people do and don't call insurrections, or give examples of historically this thing happened, but nobody ever called it an insurrection, or that thing happened, nobody ever called it an insurrection. I think that would be the way of showing a problem with consistency and saying, yes, even though these do fit your definition, and you'll bite the bullet and you'll call it an insurrection because you have to. Nobody else will. Nobody else is going to call that an insurrection, which means there's something else there. And that was his main point, is where I'm saying we're only going to call something an insurrection because we want the negative connotation on it. That's his point, is he's saying because it's Trump, because it was Trump that was involved with this, and it's something that we can pin on Trump, we have to call it an insurrection because that gives us more of a negative connotation to put towards Trump and Trumpers. And so that's a perfectly valid argument, and that's a fair thing to say.
Tom, why are you
It just
silencing the voice
doesn't.
of ethnic
I just don't
shops?
think that they actually made the argument well enough. But
I mean, like I didn't hear the second part of I didn't hear him make that second part of the argument, but I it's probably where he was going with it. But I just feel as if
no. He said
no.
He said Destiny is biased and he just hates Trump, and that's what all of this is fueled by, and I'll be able to prove that. That'll be proven by the end of this. And Destiny said,
Right.
well, I could be paid by Kamala Harris. It doesn't change whether or not this fits the definition of an insurrection. But Andrew's not fighting just whether or not it fits. He's saying, okay, even if it fits, the point is that you only want it to fit because of the negative connotation, and that if we had the same thing that fit something that you didn't think was bad, but it fit the definition, you wouldn't call it that. You only call it that because you want it to be bad.
Exactly.
Because of your bias.
I hear what you're saying with the reason why Andrew was sort of going into this, and I don't want to dispute that, but I just think I think that he's not really engaging with the substance of to me the substance of was it an insurrection comes down to
guys,
Trump's
hold on
actions
real quick.
on the-
Crucible Clips is not Andrew, guys. That's one of his editors. That's his clip channel. It's Crucible Clips, not Crucible. All right, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so what I was saying was that to me, I would say that that the substance of the particular argument is the actions around January 6th. I understand that he wants to attack sort of the usage of the word insurrection, but to me that's not getting into the meat and bones of it. Maybe that's just my opinion on the matter. Because if you don't contend with the the biggest parts of the biggest reason. Like, I understand he can attack the wording of it, but he didn't. I don't think he got into the insurrection stuff on the matter. You know what I mean? Like the sort of the certification of the vote and him sending the rights out. That's what I think about all this. I think that he didn't get into what I would consider to be the meat and bone.
It just like, you know that most of them aren't going to actually care though. Like, even if that was the case, they're going to be like, okay, yeah, but so what? Like, we don't think that's bad, which is why we're not going to call it an insurrection.
I mean, I feel as if that's it there, and I say that they don't want to engage with that because they don't call that bad, but I feel as if that is like that's the bad thing that happened to it on the point. Sorry about that.
Bro,
I've got someone apparently really wants to get a hold of me, so I'll leave you where it's
all right,
at.
I'm
You
gonna
have a
talk to
wonderful day,
Smith
Tom.
now.
Thank you so much for
all
bringing
right,
it in.